Hi, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the final part of the String Applique quilt. And for this one, I'm going to share with you how I created the design for the actual string pieced circles. And I did that using Art and Stitch, which is a digitizing program for long arm and embroidery designs. Okay, I'm going to get started, and I'm going to do a File, New, and I will select a quilting format, and I want to make sure that my grid is turned on, and I'm going to right click on my ruler and I'm going to turn on Snap to Grid. And so I want to draw just one cog. And so that will be very simple. I'm going to go ahead and use my line tool, and I'm going to put the first dot 2 over from my center, and then one dot, so a single click there. Go up 2 grid points, single click, and then finish. And now I can select that. I'm going to turn off the grid just so it's a little bit easier to see what I did. Now, I could have made that longer. I could also round this. So let me go ahead and do that. And I'm going to use the reshape tool, and I am going to just drag a box around the upper 2 points, which now are highlighted. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to turn them, they're currently line. You can't turn them to cusp. You have to turn them first to smooth and then to cusp. So I'm going to go ahead and select that again, drag around that, right click, move it to smooth, and then I'm going to right click and move them to cusp. Now I can straighten the one, but have sort of a curve at the top, which I think is a nice effect. So now that I've got that, I am going to use my select tool, and I am going to duplicate that, and I'm going to use the Control plus the D key on my keyboard, and I'm just going to set it aside. And so I'm going to take the one, and I'm going to use the Magic Circle tool. And you can see they're coming together, but maybe not in a way that I can make that work. So I'm going to cancel for just a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate that left. And then I'm going to try that Magic Circle again. And I really get to select however many objects I want in my circle. So I'm going to do 24. If you wanted it with some less, you can make it less, or you can make it more. And I am going to bring the height up. I'm going to just start with 12. I'm going to select Apply, and I can see that it's actually starting to form very nicely. Now I am going to increase the size of my space here so I can see as I change the dimensions. So I'm just going to bring the height up, and notice that as I'm doing it, they're starting to spread. And I want to try to be as close as I can to matching the start and stop points of each of the items. And I think that looks pretty good. And so once I have that done, I can select OK. Now what I want to do is use my reshape tool, and notice that they are not connected, right? Each of these are distinct elements, and I want to connect them. Now to me, the best way to do that is to tie them together. And I like to use the T key, so T as in tie, on my computer. And as I hold and click and actually just wiggle on that end point with the T key, it will connect up to the next element. And so I think this is a very fast way to tie everything together. And I know that you can connect objects to do that, but that gives you an extra node. And I like to create designs with a minimum number of nodes in them. Now for that last one, I'm going to zoom in, and I like to use the Z key for that. Notice that they are not quite on top of each other. I'm going to right click, and by the way, I'm going to turn off snap to grid, right click, and I'm going to do a snap to anchors. And now I can just click on that node so that they're right on top of each other. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out by using the space bar. And I'm going to just use the select tool, take that, move it out of the way. And now when I look at my cog in my sequence view, and if I do a properties transform, it's 17.5 inches. That is way too big. I probably want it to be around 10.5. So I'm going to go ahead and change it. I'm going to make sure my maintain aspect ratio is on before I do so. And then I will do apply. And you know what? I'm going to delete this one. I'd probably move it to another file, but since I'm sort of done, I can go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, now when I do my space bar, I can see my cog, and I'm going to go ahead and use the center button and center it. And again, the space bar to center everything. Okay, now I want to put a circle inside the cog. So I'm going to go to the common shapes here, and I'm going to select the circle. And I am going to use the control key on my keyboard as I draw the circle. And that, if I don't use the control key, I've got an ellipse, right? But if I use the control key, I've got a perfect circle. I can draw that, I can center it. And again, if I want to make it bigger, as long as I've got the control key down, it will keep it at a circle. And I'll center that. And now for the next one, I'm going to take that outer cog. I'm going to do a Control D to duplicate it. And I'm going to again use my control key and bring that size down. And I think that's too small, so I'm just going to adjust and center. And maybe just a little bit smaller. So I'll just play with something until I find something that I find pleasing. So then for the next one, again, another Control D with the control key down, move that in place. And if I want more than one circle, I can make more than one circle. I can duplicate that. Maybe make that a little bit smaller, and if that's too small, make it bigger. So this is just very much coming up with something that's pleasing to work with. So I'll do one more. So I now am going to, I've got my select tool, I'm going to do a Control A, and I am going to apply a running stitch. And it does show the jump stitches, and I can test my simulate sewing here. Now I would like to make some less complex ones for my smaller circles. So first of all, I am going to go ahead and do a save as, and String Applique 10.5, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now for the next set of designs, I don't think if I just reduce this size, it's going to get to be pretty small, particularly for that cog in the center. So what I'm going to do for that one is just delete the outer cog and maybe the outer circle. And for everything that's left, I'm going to do a Control A, and I'm going to want that around 7 inches. So I'm going to do a property transform. It's a little bit bigger than that, but I have maintain aspect ratio on. I'm going to change that to 7 and click on apply. Make sure everything is still centered, and I can go ahead and save that. And I can change these even more once I bring them into my long arm in terms of size, but I like to bring them in at the size that I'd like to stitch them out at. I think it works a little bit easier that way. And then for the last one, I'm just going to eliminate that one. You know, my other way to do the elimination is to go to the sequence view, and with my shift key I can, or with my control key, I can select both items there, and I can delete that as well. And so this will be my 5-inch, and you know, I think I'm liking the spacing on that. So I'm going to do a file, save as, and I'm going to call that String Applique, and I'll put 5 on that. And so now I can go ahead and save them. I always want to save them first in the Art and Stitch format, but now what I will do is save them in my IntelliQuilter's format and transfer it to my machine for the stitch out. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to see the final quilt with these designs in it, hop over to my blog at www.onpointquilter.com. And while you're there, please sign up for my weekly newsletter to obtain additional tips and techniques each week.